Hello and welcome to this episode of the Health Bridge podcast. I'm your host, Holly B. Today we're speaking with Caren Paskel. She is a best-selling author, speaker, and founder of Caren Paskel Self-Evolution, Youthful Longevity Yoga Training and Retreat, and the Self-Evolution Education Foundation. A master in Vedanta philosophy and a lifelong yoga practitioner, starting her growth journey at just 16 years old, Caren has dedicated her career to guiding individuals towards holistic transformation, empowerment, and self-mastery. With decades of experience in yoga and spiritual education, she provides a practical roadmap for integrating ancient wisdom into modern life. As the former owner of Soul Yoga, Caren led multiple studios and a thriving yoga community. She navigated the challenges of business leadership alongside personal adversity, caring for her husband and ultimately losing him to terminal brain cancer at the age of 30 during the pandemic. Amidst this loss and the closure of her yoga studios, she leaned into the power of self-belief, universal programs, universal laws, and community to elevate both her mission and her personal growth. She now shares these principles through her signature programs, Caren Notes on Happiness and Youthful Longevity Yoga Training and Retreat, which have been proven to help individuals develop resilience, longevity, and fulfillment by aligning the mind, body, and spirit. I so resonated with so much of this conversation with Caren. We talk a lot about limiting beliefs in this episode and how to free yourself from pain and identifying with the things that aren't our true identity, our true soul. We talk about how to turn tragedies and struggles into a transformative process and how to see these experiences as something to be grateful for and to grow through, and how to talk your nervous system through it in the process. We talk about how to identify and become aware around your limiting beliefs and the things that are really holding you back from that growth process, and how to actually learn to question them and learn to question the validity of your beliefs and the systems that you've been running on. And then we talk about how to reconnect with your soul's desire and your soul's purpose and the things that light you up and create that true heart energy that you can share with the rest of the world. But we can't do that if we can't find time for it, right? So we also talk about prioritization of time and how to actually find and create time for the things that are truly important in your life and in your growth process. Before we dive into this episode, I just have a quick ask of you. Will you please take a second and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform it is that you are listening in on? It means the world in helping our podcast grow and reach more eyes and ears. So thank you so much for doing that. And now let's dive into this episode with Caren. Caren Paskel, welcome to the program. We are about to dive into some really good, juicy, deep things in regards to healing and self-love. And I'm just really excited to jump into this with you.
Thank you, Holly. I'm so happy to be here. Really grateful.
For anybody who's watching this on video, you can see the beautiful wings behind Caren. And if you're not watching, if you're just listening to audio, she's got this beautiful set of feathered wings behind her. And maybe you could actually just start with that. What does that represent?
It represents being a butterfly, being free and freeing myself, really making that choice. Always blaming on the world or parents growing up and everyone else. And that's where all my problems are from. And I shifted my mindset to look within myself, and anything that I could see was problematic on the outside was just a reflection. And I could change from within. I didn't need to change anyone else or figure anyone else out. And once I did that and started to believe in my inner power and strength and love myself, it seemed to heal all my relationships. It healed my body and all my health problems. And so I always have a reminder if I look in the mirror or I'm on a podcast or I'm leading a coaching call online or even teaching yoga, if I see the butterfly, it's just that reminder that that's the true nature and essence within myself. And that's what I choose to inspire in others as well. This sense of being able to be free, freeing ourselves from pain, freeing ourselves from identifying with all the things that are not really truly who we are, and also freeing to move about and be who we choose to be. So it's really symbolic.
And I'm just going out on a limb here, but I'm assuming you probably had to go through some stuff in order to get to that awareness level. Maybe give that
Yes.
into your story.
Yes, this stuff. Oh my goodness. I did not come out of the womb this way. I did go through much struggle and pain and suffering. But I think the major life shift I had was meeting and marrying my soulmate, my beloved late husband, David Prentice. He was an angel. I know. It was like the missing puzzle piece. I had all the knowledge of the universal values. I had studied in India under gurus for months at a time, and it seemed like I knew all the information and was able to apply quite a bit, but I didn't realize that I didn't believe in myself. I didn't even realize that I was really staying small and separated a lot of the time and protecting myself versus being in my butterfly, being in my soulful personality, I like to call it, or self. And so seeing him, and he was so determined, confident, he had this self-belief. I mean, he really believed in himself. I could see it from the moment I met eyes with him and the smile on his face. And I was drawn to that. And I know it's because I was empty of self-belief. And I used his self-belief to really catapult me into where I am. But I didn't know that I would have to go through what I went through. So he was 12 years younger, and then ended up, we were like this power couple, got married in Italy, and it was just so romantic. Moved into this beautiful home, part of his real estate endeavor, and opened up our own businesses. Me opened up yoga studios, his own company. And then all of a sudden, 1 year after we were married, he had a grand mal seizure. And there were no symptoms before, so this was completely out of the blue and very shocking. That led to us finding a brain tumor that was cancerous but didn't need any chemo or radiation, didn't need that kind of treatment until 1 year later when another tumor arose and grew very fast, and that was the glioblastoma. That's how he died in a few months after that. So I think it was about a 2-year diagnosis, but it was very intense the whole 2 years. And I had to become, and I chose to become, a caregiver. And that was a very different role for me as the baby in the family. I was always the one being cared for. And I was always one who had the problems, complaining about them, and sort of a victim mentality. And that was my identification. That's how I received love. Because if I was doing well, no one really did anything for me or paid attention. So when I stayed sick, I did it unconsciously. I didn't intentionally mean to stay sick. I got more love. I got more help and care. So now this person is really sick. And it's like, okay, I have to shift into caregiving mode and still take care of myself, but it's more about self-preservation. And that was a big flip for me. It was like I became selfless, and in doing so, I became a different person, a new version of myself that I didn't even know. And when that happened, it gave me tremendous inner strength and power to be able to do anything of my choosing and think a lot bigger, because I was in sort of like a small bubble that I'll open this yoga studio and this, and that's it. And David was always pushing me to, or inspiring me, I should say, to think bigger, expand, and grow. And I just honestly couldn't do it on my own. I had to have something this traumatic for my wake-up call, I believe. That's what I believe, because I want to see it in a positive light. And so I'm very grateful for the experience and, watching someone you love actually take their last breath. And not only that, just decline rapidly at such a young age, where he was just so vibrant and so energetic. He didn't even ever want to sleep. And he had such ambition and these huge goals. So that experience, what it did for me is it made me not take one freaking second for granted, because I watched that and how the life was taken away and how he wanted to live so badly. And I thought, man, how selfish of me that I'm sitting here thinking that I have tomorrow, because I might not. No one really knows. And so when I came into that level of awareness and gratitude with the power of self-belief and love for myself, when he died, that's when really life started to really expand for me. And I wrote a book. I wrote 4 books. I got one published, and that's The Power of Self-Belief, where I share this incredible story. So a tragedy, I transmuted it and turned it into transformation, because I also thought about him. I thought, I'm going to make this for him and his life continue on, and for him to be so proud of me for living in this way. So I really feel like I had a choice. I didn't have to believe in myself, but I chose to. And he like handed the baton, and I took it and said, okay, it's my turn. And I think he knew why I was here. He was here. He knew at the very end. And he even told me, he's like, I get it now. Like I can die at peace, because I changed you and I got to see it. And I thought I was here to change the whole world, but really it was you and I didn't know. And now I can go peacefully. So I know that was a long answer.
Well, it sounds like he was changing the world, but he was doing it by changing you. And you're sharing your story and in turn changing out perhaps outcomes of who knows how many other people that might vibe with your story and relate to it and learn from it and grow from it.
Yes, exactly. And I've always been a leader, and I've always been leading communities and people. And this just allows me now to do it in a greater way, more of an impact, where when I was in the studio, it was very hard to manage. So I felt like I couldn't really spiritually educate and lead in the most impactful way because of the day to day. And so the pandemic and him being sick it was a blessing in disguise, where I got to step away from the studio, which I knew was killing me, and then be an author, become the speaker, become a leader to more people, leading retreats. This is something I never had the energy to even do when I had a studio. So it was an exit of one, way of living, teaching yoga and being in that studio setting, to releasing everything that was holding me back from really truly expanding and even being able to move to Colorado. I mean, when you have brick and mortar, or even owning a home, like I stepped away from all those possessions that were keeping me possessed, and that's also what the wings, represent, is I'm really free to fly wherever the wind carries me. I always say wherever the soul, is truly desiring to be.
You said something profound, which was that you were grateful for the experience of going through this traumatic loss with your husband, but you've recognized that you were grateful for that and that has actually led to your growth. And I think that's really impactful. I know it can go either way, right? It can go either way. That experience can either traumatize you and hold you back from living, as it does for so many, or it can catapult you and change your outlook on life. Any thoughts on helping those who have been stuck in that space of loss and not able to move through it in the same way?
Yes, I had been exposed to spiritual knowledge, eternal values, universal laws before I met my husband. And so death really is just the passage I've come to believe. And it just is a synonym for change as well. We all know scientifically energy cannot be created or destroyed. So therefore, energy never dies. It's just reformed. And so when I think of loss, I really don't think of loss. I think of reforming. And a physical presence in my life every day changed, right? I don't have that. But his energy and his spirit and our connection and our love never dies. And I think people forget about that. They forget to be grateful for what they do have and the time they had with someone. So I look at it completely different instead of what is lost. And I talk about this in the beginning of my book. I focus on what I gained. I had the most incredible transformational relationship with a beautiful man who's my soulmate for 6 years, whereas some people never have that experience. And I didn't have that experience until my 40s in meeting. No, I met him when I was 36 at the time and he was 24. And I just knew that it was a love at first sight experience. So how many people have that? And I just was I'm in awe and so much gratitude for how much I learned in that relationship, how much I grew exponentially. And without it, I would never have produced the book that could get to countless people in the world. I never even had a desire to write the book. And it just came out of me. I couldn't even help expressing because I realized how powerful he was in my life and how now I had that power to give away. So it's one of the very first things I always work on with anybody is gratitude because in yoga terms, it's called bhakti yoga.
Really quick, Holly B here. I just wanted to interrupt the podcast to ask you for a quick favor. Can you take just a moment to like and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you are listening in on? It makes a world of a difference. And the reach of this podcast, it takes like literally under 10 seconds. So go do that right now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And now back to the episode.
It's just being aware of the countless blessings around you, followed by a feeling of gratitude. It uplifts you, it fosters joy. So when you're in that feeling, it doesn't feel like you've lost anything anymore. And you recognize something might not be there, it might be gone, but every door that closes, every formation that changes, every life that comes and goes, it's a new beginning for something else. And so it's you can focus on again, what's changed, what's lost, or how you're growing and the blessings that came from it and what you're going to create. And I'm always here. So I don't feel that heaviness of this. And then this brings lightness. But there's always a missing. I say it's so healthy to miss. So it's not like I'm grateful. People ask me all the time, how are you grateful he died? And I said, I didn't say that. I said, I'm grateful for the experience I went through and what I learned and how I grew. But if I could go back and make the decision of would I want my husband to still be here? Of course. I mean, but he's not. So that's pointless to even talk about. So I try to help people. People feel very guilty, caregivers. A lot of the times there's so much guilt. I should have done this. I should have said that. What if I did this? Maybe they'll still be here. And I always remind people are on their own journey. His journey, even though I was in it for some of the time, is his own. So I don't know why he died at 30, but that's part of his evolution, where he's going next. And it's none of my business. So I just focus on, okay, I'm living my journey and we got to co-create for 6 years. Amazing. And that's what I focus on. If you stay in the victim mode, you can't grow. You'll never be able to. I say moving on and moving forward are very different. I'll never move on from the love I had with him, but I will move forward. I will always move forward. However, if you're stuck in that grief and victim mentality and I lost, that I recommend having community, having mentorship, really opening up for the power of receiving support. That's what I did. I had tremendous amount of support to grow through all this and not get swallowed by the death of him, of his physical presence. So I really recommend opening up. You're not supposed to do this alone. You don't need to. And I certainly didn't, but that was how I was able to move forward so much more quicker.
I agree. I think that community is invaluable when you're going through these tough times. I mean, it's invaluable just for a healthy life, period, even in the good times, but especially when you're going through grief. And that also relates to either caregiving for somebody with a chronic illness or having one yourself. So many women that I come across that have lupus or other autoimmune conditions feel incredibly alone. They feel like nobody around them understands what they're going through. And they are going through their own grief process, grieving the life that they thought they were going to live or the life that they had, the dreams and the hopes that they had for their future. And I think everything that you just said really applies to those women as well, because you have to get to a point where you're no longer stuck in that victim mentality of, oh my God, what's happening to me? I have no control over this, to one of understanding that there is growth through this process. And I also believe that we have probably gotten many energetic taps on our shoulder along the way, at least in the health journey, maybe not in somebody else's journey like you went through, but so many instances of little things saying, hey, we should redirect. Hey, we should redirect. And the more that we ignore that and put that to the side, the more likely it is that we're going to get hit with something big like a chronic health issue or something major in your life. And then it's like, okay, it's time to sink or swim. Which one am I going to choose?
Yes, I love the wake up call because I asked my brother, I remember I was talking about it, and he said, you desire to grow. So you're always going to have opportunities to do that. And you don't know what it's going to look like. It might not be what you want, but because you want to grow so bad and that's your life's mission, you're going to grow through something. And if you're not willing to grow, the universe will give that opportunity to you every time. So I did definitely I can relate to everything you just said, the knock on the door. And so often we just don't want to get out of our own way. And it's interesting because now that's what most people come to me for. They say literally, I need to get out of my own way. And I can say honestly, well, I've done that. So you're talking to the right person.
Definitely. So let's start with that. I think we get so used to thinking small in our lives. I'd say probably especially as women, and definitely I see this in the autoimmune communities. We've we've shrunk ourselves from our true potential, and we don't even realize it, I think, in many cases, or we sort of know, we sort of have this inkling, like I've felt, and I might have big visions or big dreams, but I don't really believe in my ability to achieve them, to reach them, to really help people on a large scale, right? And so I continue to play small. I continue to keep my voice small and hidden. And why do you think it is that we hide from our true selves? Obviously, society has a lot to do with it. It's just kind of ingrained. Um, but I think if we can start to have awareness around the fact that we're keeping ourselves in a box and allowing others to keep us in that box, if we can create awareness around that, then we can start to poke holes in the box and get some more oxygen.
I think that's exactly what my husband did for me. And I needed someone in my life with his personality. I needed a really strong personality. And I think I didn't have that around me. And so staying small um, actually was more celebrated for me. And I always kind of was underneath someone else's wing. I worked under my brother for years in the studio, and I knew I had this leadership ability. And so I always wanted to have my own studio, my own business. And I stayed really, really loyal. It can be a good quality, but it can also hurt us because I wasn't loyal to myself and my soul's desires. And also, it was the easier route. It wasn't as hard. And I was spoiled, honestly, growing up. I was taken care of too well and given too many things. So I didn't have to struggle in that way. And because I didn't, I remained doing things kind of halfway and not all in 100%. And I was a great yoga teacher and I got to manage and train and do all the things, but I knew always deep down that I wanted to get out and do my own thing and I just couldn't do it. And so it literally the universe manifested it for me anyways, and took apart my brother's company. So had to make a choice, either to work for people that didn't align because they kind of pushed him out and everything and watered all the trainings down, or go on my own. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing this, but I still stayed small, even in the way I opened my yoga studio and attached still to my brother and the name of the studio and doing things together. But it was right when I met David. And he said, why isn't the brand you? And I was too scared. I didn't want to be the brand. I didn't even understand what that meant. And I kind of hid behind a different name and hid behind a lot of things. And I think because it was safer, it felt safer for me. And that was where I felt comfortable navigating. I didn't think I could do it. I didn't even want to do it. I didn't even want to try. And so watching him though, and being an example of thinking big, so big that it terrified me. I was just like, I don't know how you can do this. Every day it was a new, bigger idea. And I'm like, can't you just stick with one thing? And it was like, no, just up level, upgrade every day. Now we're doing this. Now we're doing that. And I'm like, it upset my nervous system. But I started to realize, why am I holding myself back and staying small and safe? And not only because of my upbringing, but also because of the brain. The brain just wants you to be safe. And so if you sense any threat, the brain's going to go into survival mode. And instead of realizing and saying to my brain, hey, no, I'm safe, I'm just growing, I just stayed in the protective personality. When you shift to thriver from survivor, that's when life really gets way more interesting, more fun. In fact, that's where I started to become even healthier. I was going toward chronic disease. I mean, I had health issues my whole life. I ended up in the hospital twice when my husband was sick with pancreatitis. So much inflammation. And I started to believe that I could be healthy, and I started to talk about things in a different way versus I'm sick and I have all these problems and focusing on the symptoms. And I don't have any health issues anymore, which is miraculous for me growing up and being sick most of my life. So I think thinking bigger, it took me out of being in that fight or flight, survival, protective, staying small. It actually was stressing me out more. I didn't understand. And I'm unafraid now. I'm unafraid to be seen. I'm unafraid of what people are going to say. Opening a studio Whew, that was pretty grueling. Lots of feedback, lots of people publicly attacking me in many different ways. And I learned that it's okay. It's okay. And I can stand up for myself, even coaching, toughen my skin because I don't want to be that person that's invisible or afraid to say something. And even nowadays, everybody is very sensitive. And I realized that that was also holding me back from being honest and authentic. And I thought to myself, it's okay if I'm corrected. It's okay if someone's offended. And if I didn't mean that intentionally, then we can have a conversation. I can apologize. But instead of being quiet, I am now not stepping and walking on eggshells for anyone or anything. And I communicate with people. There's a lot of people that come and go, and it's all okay. But I think this is interesting because it's not taught in schools. I wasn't taught this by my parents, or there was no education around how to think bigger, how to be seen and visible. And so now I show up every day and I share my story in some kind of way because it's every day I'm practicing making sure that I don't go back into hiding because that is a tendency. We want to protect ourselves, but that hurts us more than helps.
I think that we get so stuck in our patterns and in those limiting beliefs that we don't even recognize that they are patterns and beliefs. Like, we don't realize that we aren't our thoughts. When I started learning about neuroplasticity, and
Yeah.
I started learning that I am not actually my thoughts, that was like mind blowing for me. And I think we just get so stuck in the routine. I mean, I talk about this all the time, but I would recognize my thoughts as being realistic. My limiting beliefs were just, I was just being realistic. And my boyfriend actually called me out on occasion of like, you're just lying to yourself, or, that's not true. And I'm like, it absolutely is true. And I try to line up the facts to defend myself. And I don't like being wrong. So I had a whole bunch of them to back me up. But when I realized that I could actually start questioning my own thoughts and beliefs and saying, well, do I actually have evidence to prove this? Is there actually anything to back up the fact that I don't have the skills to get a better paying job, or that I can heal my lupus that's supposed to be a lifelong chronic condition? Do I have anything that actually proves those things to be true? And I think if you can get to that point, then you can start really turning things around. Even if it doesn't take away your chronic health issues, you can have a new experience with them. And just that alone is going to shift your life tremendously.
Yes, and I had this beautiful mentor at one point after my husband passed, and she said to me about limiting beliefs, here's how you can, test out your beliefs is ask yourself, one, is this true? I think it's the first one is, where did I hear this from? Where did you learn this? Where did it come from? Then, is it true? And if not, what's the new belief? And I basically spread all of my thoughts and beliefs out on the table and one by one just looked at everything and said, is this really who I want to become? Is this really how I want to continue to live? Is this something that's serving me and the greater good of all around me? Yes, no, maybe so. And I was very, very intellectual and very logical and reasonable. And anyone who talked about the universe and astrology and all the things, the woo-woo stuff, I was just couldn't even let it in and scoffed at it. And now that's me. I mean, look at my background. I'm the woo-woo princess. I think it's a beautiful conversation when you do have reason and logic as well. You need both. You need all of it. But now I'm a dreamer, and I always was a creator. I was always an artist, but I really stayed small, very introverted and very hidden. And now I just dream all the time. I'm in fantasy land and I'm dreaming and imagining. I'm using all my mental muscles. And it took a while to get here into full expression, And there's more to go. There's always more to go. But now instead of staying closed-minded, I didn't even realize I was. I thought I was the most open-minded human being on the face of the planet.
As did I.
So I think we have a lot in common.
Yes.
And very, very resistant. I mean, my husband was the same as your boyfriend. He called me out all the time. He was the first person to tell me to stop complaining. And that was the greatest gift I had ever received. I had gone to countless therapists, and it was like they almost encouraged just the nonstop complaining and the past. And it was like I was just living in it. It was drowning me. I have a power thought in my book called Complaining is Draining. And when he said that to me, he just said, "Stop complaining and go do it." Whatever it was I was complaining, just go do it. And I was like, "Thank you for saying that." And it just was, why hasn't anyone told me this? Like, I've paid so much money for help and all this time. It was just that one, he called me out. He came from very different tracks. He grew up with no money and, in a small mobile home with a lot of kids. The parents were divorced at a young age. He started to work for himself at 8 years old because there was not enough food on the table. And so he had a different mindset. And it really, really, really helped me get out of my own way and get out of the complaining. And then the beliefs. And I was reading one book, like it was called Vedanta Treatise from my guru. And he was like, "Why don't you read anything else?" And it's like everything else is wrong, This is the only thing. And then I realized, oh, this just makes sense to me. That's really great. This is a great foundation. Now I'm the biggest reader in all of the books that he had that I never read, but I was so stubborn about. He's like, "I think you would really like this. I think this really aligns with the." No. Now, of course, I'm reading. I can't get enough because it's all the same teachings, but in many different words and languages. So the more that I know how to teach these principles in different languages, the more I can relate and connect to so many different people. So it's just so funny that he really truly is the gift that keeps on giving. And I was very stuck in my ways, and I needed someone like him to get me unstuck and get me to open up to a world where I can truly dream and envision and create and recreate every day of my life.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and interrupt the program for just a hot minute. You know that I'm so passionate about this podcast, but what I'm also really passionate about is helping women with lupus minimize their symptoms, boost their energy so that they can indulge in life again. So if you are a woman who is struggling with lupus, who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, who's struggling to manage your flares, if you're finding that your lupus symptoms are just really getting in the way of you being able to live your life the way you want to, I feel you. I've been there myself and I felt the same way. And what I've found is that there are a certain set of health fundamentals that once applied, will support you in your foundational health. They will support you in building and maintaining that energy, minimizing flares, and allowing you to, again, indulge in life and follow your passions. So, if that is something that you are interested in creating for yourself, let's jump on a call together. I will walk you through the process that I use with my clients to get them from sick and tired to strong foundation of health by implementing my Health Bridge protocol. If this is something you're interested in chatting more about, I would love to talk to you. Apply for a free clarity call with me, and I look forward to getting to know you soon. And now back to the episode. Think you are so right when you say you're looking at different books and learning different things to find different languages to essentially teach the same thing
Yep.
in a way that somebody going to respond. And I think that that's so true. It's like somebody said recently, there are no new ancient truths. And that's so right. And but we're all going to respond. We can take multiple different pathways to get to that same truth, right? So
Yes.
what's going to get you to that same truth? It might be a little bit different than me. or somebody over here, somebody over here, but they all come back to the same foundational principles of health and spirituality. And I think one of those foundational principles is getting back to a sense of happiness and joy. And that's where creativity comes from. That's where life, that's where we get lit up, right? And we can affect the world around us. And I'm curious, as we kind of wrap up here, what type of daily practices do you use and do you work on with your clients as far as cultivating that sense of joy and happiness in their lives?
It's funny because I asked my clients to make a joy list, all the things that bring them joy, whatever they may be, and to look at that list every day and make sure, does that align with the actions on a daily basis? And most of the time, a lot of the things that bring us joy, we aren't doing. We aren't taking those actions. So that's a big one, to have a joy list. What really brings us joy? And I talk about soul's desires a lot because the soul is joyful. And when you're resonating with your home frequency, meaning your soul frequency, where you are when you're authentic, when you have love for yourself, when you're truthful and there's joy, that's your home frequency. So what brings you back to that? It's always here, but sometimes we slip into other vibrations. I just had a whole call on this. So when I wake up, I mean, the first thing is always that recognition that I'm alive and that it's another opportunity. And so first thing is always gratitude. People talk about the practice of gratitude and it's like, oh, I've heard that. Well, are you actually practicing it? And so I want to remind everybody that it is a skill, it is a practice, and you don't just feel grateful all the time. It's something you actually do have to think about. And so that's number one, is just to recognize all that I have. No matter what I woke up to, I'm grateful for it. That feeling automatically fosters joy. Then I also have a beautiful morning routine. I ask some of my clients, what is it that you do in the morning? And most people they just get up, they wash their face, brush the teeth, go to the bathroom, maybe have a cup of coffee, and some of them are just out the door. And so I really encourage to take a morning routine for yourself. What is going to be best for your body, your mind, your intellect, and your spirit to go out into the day and meet and greet who knows what? Some we do have control over and some we don't. So making time for yourself, and this is the number one pillar of one of my businesses called Youthful Longevity, and it is prioritizing or reprioritizing your health as your purpose. We all have priorities, and most of the time it's not ourself, it's not our happiness, it's not our health. So the quality time that you give to yourself, that self-care, I do a morning study on universal truths from different books I have that sets my mind in those higher values versus the news and the stuff going on in the world that makes us feel crazy and out of control. And so I don't even watch the news. I just know what's going on because people tell me. So I'm like, thanks, that's good enough. So those are some of the practices, but I always move my body, and I do it multiple times in the day. But first thing, because most of the time the day gets away from us. So that's why the morning routine is essential. But also for our happiness and joy, we have to insert, or we might choose to insert self-care practices throughout the day. Are you leaving the office to take a breath of air? Are you taking time to actually eat something nourishing? And I know we were talking about before we actually went live, it's sometimes the smallest, simplest things that you would not even think about that can bring you joy and happiness. So get back to, what do you need? And one of the things I'll share really quickly is I'm working with one of my really good friends right now. She needed mentorship, and she has twin 3-year-olds and a husband who travels all the time for work because he's a pilot. And so I had to really help her first with the mindset, because she just believed that she didn't have time. I don't have time. And I said, well, that's because you believe you don't have time. You do have time, and you can prioritize yourself. And there's people who can help you, and you can hire babysitters and this, that, and the other. now she's showing up for herself in one of my programs every single day, sharing her wins. She was not showing up at all. I just don't have time. I'm too busy. How does someone with the same exact life circumstances, all of a sudden now she's showing up, she's talking to me every day, we're working through stuff, she's going out in nature on walks, she's finding time to connect to other mothers, all of these things, reading books that I've recommended, all the stuff she said I can't do. Now she can. Again, your beliefs might be limiting you. So you do have time if you create it and you prioritize it. And I think that another thing I could recommend is I do have a course called Cliff Notes on Happiness. Now it's called Karen's Notes on Happiness. And it's a 3-month course. It has 12 very high quality, low quantity. So you're not going to have to do this for the rest of your life. Teachings in short videos to be a happy human being because it's your birthright.
It is your birthright. And I agree with you so much on the time creation and the prioritization. Creating time for self-care is essential, absolutely essential. Like it's number one. You can't pour into anybody else until you pour it into yourself. And I can also attest to the fact that I have always struggled with the concept of time and not having enough time to do all the things that I need to do. And I'm still working on that, but I've gotten much better. And just as an example, I just recently started doing, I joined 2 separate programs with 2 different coaches, both, limited time frame. And I was convinced I didn't have time to do these things, but I knew I had to do these things. I knew I needed growth in these areas, and they just happened to coincide at the same time. And guess what? I'm finding time to do it because it's a priority to me. And so now I know when those 2 programs are done, I have that whole chunk of time that I was devoting to that I can now devote to something else that I can create as a priority, right? So we can find the time when it's important to us.
Exactly. Because we create our schedules. And very long ago, I was pointed out, like, we complain about the bills. Who signed up for the phone, for the this, for the that? You did. We complain about our children. You chose to have the children. So we create our schedules, but we can recreate our schedules. And I talk about a soul schedule. What does a soul schedule look like? What are the things for your souls? And, yes, there are some obligatory duties and responsibilities, but I'm working with an 82-year-old right now. She just signed up with me and my partner because he has all the money and all the things, and he still feels he doesn't have time. He still feels busy all the time. And it's just funny because he doesn't have to be doing any of it. He has the luxury but he made the schedule to feel fulfilled, but now it's creating stress. So there's 2 types of lists, the to-do list and the to-be list. And the to-do list is never ending, and it really takes up a lot of time, and it makes us feel very stressed. And the to-be list is lighter. It brings joy and happiness and helps us. I know you're taking notes. It's a good one, isn't it? Like,
Yes, I
it's like,
love
don't
that.
even use the word do. Is so heavy, and it's this old language of struggle. I've got to do, and go. So I'm definitely living in a much more relaxed mode. People ask me, what are your plans today? What do you have going on later? And it's like, not really anything. I just I've taken all the things, the to-dos off the schedule. So everything is for my soul, everything's to be, and then I take inspired action, which is inspired by soul, God, spirit. And that kind of action is way different from being in a world of hustling and bustling and going and doing. That actually made me very, very ill. That's why I was so sick. And now I'm in this relaxed freedom space of time. It's not that I'm not doing anything, but the things that I am doing, they are for being in my highest vibration self and living my greatest life. And so I feel light and free. I don't feel like I don't have enough time or I can't do this and that. And you're exactly right. I tell my clients, we prioritize our schedule. Instead, change it to schedule your priorities. Schedule your priorities. What is most important? Put all of that first. And then if there's any room, you can add some of the to-dos if it makes sense, if it feels good.
One of my coaches recommends doing a time audit to see where your energy is going.
Mhm.
And she does it different than anybody else I've seen. At the end of each line where you're putting in what you did, you click a box that says it added to my energy or it drained my energy. So I think that's like a perfect way of summing this part of the topic up is what are you prioritizing and is it adding to your highest and best or is it taking away?
Exactly. I had a beautiful I still do. I work with him now and we're coaching together, but he was my mentor in the beginning and we talked a lot about the energy bank balance because after my husband died, going through that caregiving and then his death, it took everything out of me. I was very, very depleted, and I really had to work on my energy balance and the clients that were coming in. Is this draining me? Is this the type of person who I can feel balanced in? Or am I going to have to sleep for 5 hours after I coach this person? And I had to ask myself these questions. And it was mind blowing, really taking a look at what is a withdrawal and what is a deposit into that energy bank balance. So it's not easy. I really do agree with you. It's something that is so much easier when you're having someone else help you with it because we just can't see ourselves a lot of the time. We can't see what's happening to us, and someone with a more objective perspective can guide us, and I'm so grateful for that guidance, and then to be able to give guidance as well. So I always say a great mentor and a great coach always has great mentors and coaches always behind them, supporting them.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, where can everybody find you?
I think the easiest way is my website, CarenPaskel.com, and all my information is there. On Instagram, it's just at Caren Paskel. Follow me. I leave inspirational videos every day about how to live your best life.
Karen, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with us.
Thank you. Thank you. And also, my book, The Power of Self Belief, has my information as well. So,
Perfect.
thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you. So, where is your home frequency? Where is your soul residing? What are the things that lights your soul up? That's what I want you to think about as this episode comes to a close. I want you to line it up on paper, just like Karen said, and really take an honest and hard look at are you prioritizing things in your life that allow you to connect with those things that light you up, to connect with the things that bring you joy? Or are you always brushing it off to, I'll get to it tomorrow, I'll get to it next week. Maybe when I have my next week-long vacation, I can get to it then. I want you to be really real with yourself about where you are in that process. And what's one subtle shift that you can make in your life to prioritize more of those things? Just one simple shift. Is it waking up a half an hour earlier so that you can take the time to do a little yoga or to write in your journal or to study and work on your side business? Everybody has an extra half an hour. I guarantee you, if you just look at how much time you spend on social media, I guarantee you can carve a half an hour out of that time to put towards something that will actually fuel your soul. We were talking about the importance of morning routines, and I have personally found that creating a solid morning routine has been life changing. And it gives me that time every morning that I put towards myself before I scroll on my phone, before I go to work, before I pour into anything outside of myself. I need to pour into myself. And I actually have a free download. It's your daily lupus guide and symptom tracker that will still apply to you even if you don't have lupus, but it's the solid foundation of my morning routine and supportive evening routine that really changed the way I felt physically, mentally, and emotionally throughout my day. And I offer it to you for free. So I'll have the link to download that in the show notes. I invite everybody to do that and try it for a solid 7 days straight. And then let me know exactly how you felt after that 7 day process. I guarantee you, you will feel some shifts no matter what, hands down. So download that and let me know how it goes. I look forward to seeing you next week on our next episode of the Health Bridge podcast. Thank you so much for listening.